We can go to the next slide. All right, well, thank you everyone. Hello, my name is Talia Washington, and I'm the Executive Director for the DC Metro team here at Higher Achievement. Thank you so much for joining us on your lunch break today. We are really excited to spend the next 45 minutes or so with you. Before we dive in, I'd like to briefly take care of some housekeeping. We have a relatively large group joining us today. We're over 50. I still see people coming into the meeting. Welcome. Because we have a large group for the town hall today, we are going to mute your microphones, and we do ask that you remain on mute for the program until the end when we get to the Q&A. You are more than welcome to turn your cameras on if you so choose, though it's certainly not required. And because there are so many of us, you might best enjoy the presentation part of our program in speaker view in Zoom. And you can adjust that view by going to the view button in the top right-hand corner of your screen. This conversation is going to be recorded, and we'll share the link by email tomorrow. And finally, we're very eager to hear your questions. So at the end, there will be a significant amount of time reserved for Q&A. So please jot down your questions as we go, and we'll invite you to ask them a little later. So with that, let's get started. We have over 60 people right now, and we're still coming in, joining us today. So before we dive in, we'd love to get a quick sense of who's here with us. Please use the poll function that should be popping up on your screen to let us know who is with us today. And we'll give you about 10 seconds or so to respond. Yeah, I see those responses coming in. Thank you. In a minute, we will share the results, maybe like 5 more seconds. We'd love to know who's here with us. Go ahead and choose a selection on the poll. Got about 50 of our 60 people. Great. All right, 2 more seconds. 1 more second. And then we would love to share the results. So let's take a look at who's here. We have board members. We have Higher Achievement staff from across our regions. We have mentors, volunteers, school partners. So we do have a mix of people joining us today, which is wonderful. And as a reminder, we do have people joining us from all 3 of our regions, DC, Baltimore, and Richmond. And I think we even have a few friends joining us from somewhere else in the country. So thank you so much to everybody. All right, let's take a look at the agenda. And I just want to briefly share how we will spend our time today. We are going to hear from a variety of voices from the Higher Achievement family, who will be reflecting on the whopper of a past year that we have had and looking ahead to the new school year. And then at 12:30, we will open it up to questions from you. So with that, I'd like to introduce our CEO, Lindsay Wood Jeffries.
Thank you so much, Talia. And it's such a joy to see so many friends on the line this afternoon. I'm Lindsay Wood Jeffries. My preferred pronouns are she, her. Since March 2020, our worlds have all been rocked and turned upside down. We've suddenly become experts on Zoom. We have narrowed our worlds from dozens and dozens of people we saw to just a handful. We've struggled with loss, grief, economic uncertainty, racial violence, and racial reckoning. And that's just for the grown-ups. Now imagine living through this time as a middle schooler, when even in an average year, you are wrestling with who you are, trying to understand, make sense of the world around you, and doing that at a time when the world just doesn't make sense. That is what our scholars have been going through over these last 15 months. We know that this time has been a once in a century, hopefully, crisis that has led to exacerbating divides that already existed across this country. There's been disproportionate trauma for people of color, more COVID deaths, more economic uncertainty and loss. And our scholars have experienced the least amount of in-person instruction across these year and a half almost, as suburban districts and independent schools figured out ways to bring back in-person learning earlier. Urban districts tended to take longer, and in most cases, the middle schoolers were the last to be able to come back. So again, the forgotten middle. McKinsey estimates that this time of interrupted instruction has led to learning loss amounting to 12 months or more. And at the same time, over 5.8 times more food insecurity compared to 2018, and 31% increase in ER visits for middle and high school students for mental health reasons. So it is within this dramatic backdrop that higher achievement paused, listened closely one-on-one to our scholars and families in the first 10 days of the schools being closed, and developed quickly a virtual model to meet the evolving needs of our scholars and families. I'm so proud of the resilience and the dedication of our scholars, and I'm so proud as well of our staff, all of the hard and adaptive work that we have done. Today, you'll get to meet some of them, and it's my pleasure to first introduce you to our unstoppable Executive Director of Baltimore, Garima Bhat-Handley.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. For those of you who have not yet met, my name is Garima Bhat-Handley. I'm the Executive Director of Higher Achievement Baltimore. As we sort of navigated through our year of virtual support, what we experienced and what we were hearing from districts and other programs and schools directly was that amidst the steep learning losses, high dosage tutoring in small group settings was the thing that was closing gaps for students in Baltimore and across the state and country. You may be wondering, what is high dosage tutoring? I've heard a little bit about this. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later. After our Baltimore State of the Org event last year, Principal Ashley, the long-standing, amazing school leader at Highlandtown 237, reached out immediately inquiring about a partnership. She said that Baltimore is flush with programs that support literacy in early childhood education or elementary grades, but there are very few academic programs supporting middle school students in Baltimore. As the immigrant population increases in neighborhoods like Highlandtown, we're seeing a direct correlation on school population. Principal Ashley has a strong reputation in the community. Every family wants their children at her school, but this means larger class sizes. Teachers are in need of additional academic support. As the students at Highlandtown 237 are back into the building this fall, she and her staff are attempting to close gaps with their 975 plus students. She said a program like Higher Achievement Baltimore is the answer to her prayers. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. James Morgan, the Director of Program Operations in both Baltimore and DC.
Thank you, Garima. This past year has been hard. It's been hard for scholars, it's been hard for families, and it's been hard for staff. Everyone has felt the impacts of the pandemic. Some of our scholars and staff moved to be closer to loved ones and provide care when they got sick. Staff and families were at home, juggling work responsibilities while supporting their own children through online learning. And some in our community lost loved ones to COVID-19. We were all thrown into an unprecedented situation, but our staff stepped up in incredible ways to be an unrelenting present force for scholars and families. Over the past year, our center teams made over 1,000 phone calls to families to check in on scholars, find out what they needed, and hear how higher achievement could more effectively provide support. Programming immediately pivoted to be available online, providing scholars with targeted academic supports while maintaining opportunities to connect with mentors and build a fun and engaging culture. Remote programming was certainly not easy. Many scholars were tired of staring at the screen by the end of the day, so it could be hard to get them to turn on their cameras. And oftentimes, scholars would join sessions while in the car or while running errands with their parents. Some had to be care providers for younger siblings, which made it difficult for them to attend regularly. But higher achievement staff never stopped working to connect with scholars, to make sure they knew higher achievement was there for them, and to continue to provide engaging, supportive, and relationship-focused programming. And in the midst of all of these challenges, this year scholars had so many opportunities through higher achievement. We implemented weekly small group math pods. Scholars attended virtual college visits to Virginia Tech, participated in high school admissions fairs, and heard from guest speakers from different high schools and occupations during our weekly community meetings. Knowing how much scholars lost this past year, Higher Achievement's mission has never been more important. Now I'd like to turn it over to Katie Comerford, our Executive Director in Richmond.
Thank you so much, James, and congratulations to all my peers, my fellow staff members who really gave so much to scholars this year. I wanted to share with this group a discussion I had last March with Principal Antoine London at Henderson Middle School here in Richmond, and it gave me so much perspective for the rest of the year. He reminded me that when he opens his doors in the fall, 2/3 of his students will have never attended school in this building. His incoming 6th graders and his incoming 7th graders. 2 full classes of middle schoolers that are brand new to the rooms, the hallways, and the teachers at Henderson. That's not including any sort of teacher turnover they had. The incoming 8th graders were last in the building when they were the little kids, and now they are the big kids. In his optimism, Principal London was excited to start fresh with the culture at Henderson and to enlist higher achievement as champions of a school culture that included school pride, unity, and belonging. And this is what we do. In this past year, schools and workplaces alike struggled to build community in the absence of a physical presence. At Higher Achievement, we brought community to our scholars as usual, and put a high priority on the social and emotional learning inside of all of our programming, knowing that mastery of self-management and relationship building, particularly this year, was as critical as mastery of the math concepts, for instance. And that was what was going to take our scholars further, farther. But we know that this culture, the higher achievement culture, and the community served is the bridge for this quarantine year. We knew that the community is what was going to take our scholars through the year and into next year. And it will take us into this challenging and exciting new year. And we are so happy to be the champions of that culture and to stand alongside our principals and our teachers and our families as we bring our scholars into this next year. So now I want to hand the mic over to Lindsay, who's going to talk more about what the next year looks like for the higher achievement.
Thanks so much, Katie, James, and Garima. As we look ahead at the school year ahead and the school years to follow, higher achievement is focused on 2 things: learning and love. First, love. Just like all children, our scholars need a strong base of love in order to do anything, including in order to learn. To make up for the interrupted instruction over the last 15 months, at Higher Achievement, we are especially equipped to blend learning and love together. We have always done that. It is our special sauce. And for the first time in my 21 years being involved with Higher Achievement, the federal government and schools are paying attention to that special sauce. The broader set of educators, the recognition of the need to expand learning time has been written into the CARES Act, and schools have unprecedented dollars to support work like this. And we are stepping up in partnership to meet this moment. Given the exacerbated inequities of the last 15 months, we know that more of the same is not going to cut it. We have to do more, we have to do better by our scholars, and we need to incorporate the lessons of the last year into the work ahead. All of the work that we plan to do is grounded in what has come before, and it is also grounded in external research, particularly the research around the power of something called high dosage tutoring, which you heard Garima mention as well earlier. The concept is just that with repeated small group instruction multiple times over a week on a concrete subject, students can accelerate and excel. That's been researched by a professor at Harvard, Roland Fryer, and it is one of the few things that is proven to close achievement gaps that have widened during these last 15 months. We remain steadfastly focused on serving our middle school scholars and helping them through this pivotal transition with wrapping together the academic and the social emotional supports they need to succeed in middle school and advance on to college preparatory high schools. And we're doing this learning and love blend with more scholars than ever before. We're pushing ourselves in partnership with our schools to serve more students where we are currently and in a number of conversations, like with Highlandtown, to expand to new sites as well. So a little bit more about this love and learning. First, the love, a muscular love. We're so excited to be back in person with our scholars. And our full expectation is that will be the way we operate in the coming school year, of course, following all of the COVID safety and social distancing requirements. The first several weeks will be lots of reconnection and social emotional learning activities for staff and mentors and scholars, all to reconnect and rebuild the community that we maintained during this time, but build it even stronger in person with that in-person magic. Mentoring going forward in this school year and ahead will center even more on the social emotional learning and the high school readiness that is the anchor of higher achievement. There will be grade level differentiated lessons, for example, with our 5th graders diving into what their dreams and goals for the future are, 6th graders exploring their cities and understanding more about civic engagement and their voice, 7th graders understanding their personality types, exploring career aspirations and high school options, and 8th graders going more deeply into high school applications and exploring college and post-secondary options. So second, the learning. As I mentioned, we are anchored in this college preparatory high school goal for higher achievement and for our scholars. We know that 95% of our scholars graduate from high school on time, which depending on the neighborhood can be almost double the rate of their peers. We want to make sure that our scholars are on track to go into those college prep high schools and stay on track for long-term success. So that they can be prepared for these college prep schools, we're leaning into that research base that I mentioned around high dosage tutoring and building on one of the key insights of this virtual year, which was the power of small group learning. You can see in this slide the transition from what had been our study hall, which was 15 to 20 scholars with 1 part-time staff member, into these much smaller ratios of roughly 4 scholars to 1 tutor, really focused on one subject as the research proposes, on English language arts and literacy tutoring. We expect to likely use the Achieve 3000 platform to support and individualize the learning around literacy with our scholars. So why did we choose literacy? First of all, reading, comprehension, and writing are essential for all 4 core subjects. Of course, English, but then also social studies, science, and even math do require a strong level of reading, comprehension, and writing skills. It's also essential for that anchor of placement in college preparatory high schools. It's also pivotal for our scholars to crystallize their voice and lift up their voice, which is essential for social justice. And as always, as you can see here in this slide, the other elements will continue. Our community meeting, which offers an opportunity for community building as well as processing current events. We'll continue to support our scholars completing their homework in all subjects, as well as offering college trip and career exposure opportunities. So we are stepping up to meet this moment, and we need support from our community to do it really well. Explicitly, we need literacy tutors, mentors, and dollars. We'll talk a little bit more about this in a moment. But right now, we need 235 literacy tutors across our 5 districts from Baltimore through Richmond. We need about 124 high school readiness mentors. And we need to raise roughly $400,000 to support this new model. A number of very generous supporters are already stepping up to meet the financial need. And I know there's tons of traction for volunteers, but we need help from all of you and your networks as well. As one of our scholars, Byron, who goes to or just graduated from Columbia Heights Education Campus, recently told me, higher achievement doesn't just give me problems to answer and facts to memorize, but helps me really understand the world around me, to develop my own questions and opinions. And that's what we want for all young people, to develop their own understanding of the world and lift up their voices. So with this approach to love and learning, we will be helping our scholars heal from this year, to see their talents for all the brilliance that they have, and to share them with the world. It is now my pleasure to introduce Sharika Ekpo, one of our wonderful alumni, to share her experience. Off to Sharika.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you so much for having me. And I love the new focused approach from Love and Learning. And as you read Byron's quote, I couldn't help but think about my time here at Higher Achievement. So good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sharika Ekpo, and I'm a Higher Achievement alum. And I'm currently the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at a company called Anaplan. I'm thrilled to be here today to talk to you, so many of my Higher Achievement friends and partners. I've spent the majority of my career in human resources, really working to support teams and organizations and really people. But I've spent the last 22 years as a mom. And having had to parent a middle schooler some time ago and to elementary age kids through the pandemic, I know firsthand the difficulties the pandemic brought to schools and the workforce. And while you might assume that I think a lot about people, I actually think more about connection. You see, the power of connection has been present in my life at a very young age, because it was my third grade teacher and my double Dutch coach, Miss Tunstall, who recommended that I join the Higher Achievement program. But as the workplace continues to evolve to be more open, and you all know and have heard over the past year, there's an increased focus on diversity and inclusion, and really a yearning to understand how these two goals attract each other. We have to create a foundational experience of belonging. And a feeling of belonging not only allows employees to bring themselves to work and their best ideas, but it also helps them to focus. But let me tell you something. Focusing on a sense of belonging cannot start soon enough in a person's life. We can't wait until someone takes their first job to give them the confidence that they need to belong. Higher Achievement works with middle schoolers. And as we all know, that's a very pivotal point in a young person's life. And that really contributes early on to their development. Not only is Higher Achievement supporting the academic growth, but the new model that Lindsay just talked about will also help them to grow each scholar's sense of self, sense of curiosity, and a source of strength. There are real payoffs in this work, and not just ensuring that scholars find success in high schools, but that they're also prepared for the workforce. The workforce needs programs like Higher Achievement, and I'm blessed to be a very proud alum. If that sense of belonging doesn't exist at an early age, it's harder to create that later on. So as students get back to their routines of a traditional school year this fall, I'm rest assured that programs like Higher Achievement will be supporting both the academic and social emotional needs of our students as they catch up and eventually accelerate with our new Love and Learning model. I am thrilled that you are all here to figure out how you can help. Lindsay gave us a strong call to action, and I know that each one of us can contribute in our own special way. But now to learn more about that, I would like to introduce Ms. Julie Herwig, the chair of our Higher Achievement Board.
Wow, thank you, Sharika. We were just so proud to have you as an alum of Higher Achievement. It's just so impressive. And on behalf of the board of Higher Achievement, I would like to thank each of you who made time to be on this call today. I hope that, like me, you have been impressed and inspired by what you have heard. You know, for me, I've always believed in the values of Higher Achievement, but I have never been more proud of the organization than over the past 2 years, as they, like all of us, have stretched and grown to adapt to these really challenging times. And throughout it all, they made sure to meet their mission, regardless of the circumstances, and to be there for their scholars, whether it was virtually, or in person. And I ask you to join me today to make that same commitment, to join us and to help ensure that Higher Achievement has all the tools that we need to hit the ground running this fall, to serve our scholars and to be there for them in person and to serve more scholars. You may be wondering how you can help. And I've seen some traffic on the chat about that. First, as Lindsay talked about, mentorship is just a critical component in so many people's lives, including mine, probably Sharika's, and probably many of you.
But the need for extra support during the middle school years is so often overlooked, but not at Higher Achievement. The foundation of what we do, the foundation of our work with scholars, has always been with our mentors. So please consider joining us as a mentor this fall. As you also have heard today, we are adapting Higher Achievement's program as a result of the loss of school time over these past few years, or past year and a half during the pandemic. And we need not only mentors, but tutors. So if your schedule allows, please consider signing up to be a tutor. You also can help us simply by advertising these opportunities. I saw that on the chat. Please spread the word for our need for mentors and tutors on your social media pages. Help us increase our network and our reach. Lastly, please consider making a donation. If you've already given this year, thank you. I hope you'll consider making an additional donation today. If you haven't yet made a gift, please join our family of supporters and help support our communities and help them recover from the trauma of the last 2 years. Please use the contact information that's in the slide and also in the chat to partner with us in helping Higher Achievement. Thank you. And now we will be happy to take questions. I'll turn things over to Talia, who can help talk about the logistics of how the Q&A section will work.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Julie. All right. So I want to thank Julie, and I want to thank all of our speakers again. Thank you, Lindsay, Katie, Garima, James, Sharika, and Julie. For those who joined a little later, just to reintroduce myself, I'm Talia Washington, the Executive Director here at DC Metro. So we would love to open it up for questions. We wanted to provide a little context, a little look back, a little bit of a look ahead, but we really do want to hear from all of you. What are you reflecting on after listening to our speakers? What are you still curious about? What's on your mind as we settle into summer, but begin to look ahead to the new school year? Given the size of the group today, to ask a question, we'd like you to virtually raise your hand by using the reactions feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. When you click reactions, you'll see an option to raise your virtual hand, and I'll invite you to come off of mute to ask your question. Or if you prefer, you can also drop a question in the chat. We're happy to take them that way as well. Okay, so at this point in the program, I also want to remind you, if you had changed your view to speaker view, you might also want to change back now to the gallery view. And again, you can do that in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Okay, I'm going to do that myself. There we go. So let's see what questions we can answer. Just a moment here. Okay, I see a hand raised by Mr. Stephen Kroll. And if you would like to take yourself off of mute, Mr. Steve, and ask your question, we'd be really happy to hear it.
Good afternoon, Talia.
Hi, Mr. Steve, how you doing?
I'm fine. Do you see any links programmatically between the mentoring and tutoring?
Do we see any links between the mentoring and the tutoring? I am happy to answer, but I'd also welcome any of our panelists. Lindsay, would you like to take a first stab at that, and then we can
Sure. Yeah, Mr. Steve, it's a great question. I think there are definitely links in that the tutors will be focused on discrete literacy skills, and that those literacy skills will translate into our scholars' readiness for high school, right? And that's the work that we imagine the mentors to be more sort of enduring year over year, hopefully to take scholars all the way from 5th through 8th grade. With tutors, we are targeting a range of folks, but I think heavy focus on university students, understanding that that relationship may just last 1 year. Hopefully it will last more than that. But it's the discrete academic skills that will translate into the enduring relationships with mentors.
I was thinking, for instance, suppose there's a student in 7th grade and he's in mentoring and tutoring.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that he's reading not well or very well. Is there a mechanism for me to communicate that back to his tutors?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I think that is one where the communication with our center staff will be essential, as all things are, with all of the volunteers and scholars at our centers. And so I think it's not dissimilar to, what if mentors experience those questions in the kind of previous form of mentoring, how
Study
you
hall.
would raise questions to center staff, and we may be able to go a little bit more discreetly into some academic skills in study hall. I think with the tutors, we'll be even more equipped, particularly with literacy, to get to that level of detail.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
Great
Ms.
question.
That is a great question. And as a reminder, we have several higher achievement staff from across our regions in the audience as well. And it's a great question because I do absolutely think that's right, Lindsay, that our full-time staff, every one of our centers has 2 full-time staff, in addition to the cohort of volunteers, mentors, and tutors. And I do think our full-time staff, who are the experts on their students and on the connections between the mentoring and the tutoring program, are the natural bridge between those 2 groups. That was a great question. All right, let me see. Are there any other questions? Either virtually, you can raise your hand, or you can drop them in the chat for us. Sorry, guys, I'm struggling to see my
I see it. Janelle, I see that you have a question. Do you want to come off mute?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm wondering, with this tutoring and mentoring, like if we were to come back as a mentor with the focus on social emotional learning, is that going to be the same kind of set curriculum, or is there going to be like different levels of mentoring, whether that's like an enrichment program or kind of something separated out by like types of scholars? I know you talked about like personality with 7th graders. Will it be separated out by kind of what the scholars need, or will there be the set curriculum?
I can answer this question, Lindsay, if you don't mind.
Please.
Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Emma. I'm the senior manager of volunteers and curriculum, so I oversee this curriculum development work. It's a great question. So the vision is that there will still be a set curriculum for mentoring. So like you will have lesson plans that are built out, and all the groups will be working on the same lesson plans. But there will be a lot of space within lesson plans to kind of adapt based on your scholars' interests or skill sets. So for example, there's a whole unit built into the 7th grade curriculum that is developing passion projects. So you would have lesson plans that work you through like research skills or creating a PowerPoint or, paraphrasing information. But then scholars have the flexibility to choose any topic to apply those skills based on what they're interested in. So there will still be a set curriculum, but there's a lot of space for that scholar voice and choice kind of within those parameters.
Thanks, Emma. And thanks, Janelle, for your question. It was great to hear your voice. I see. Okay, I think I figured it out now. Sorry, guys, I was feeling. I now see your hand raised, Mary. I'm going to go to Mary, and then I think there's a question in the chat. But Mary, what's your question?
Hi, everyone. As always, so impressed by what you are doing to zero in on the kids, students, scholars' needs. Given that you need roughly 500 people to help you in this effort, I wondered if high schoolers who need service hours are a potential opportunity for you. I don't know if you think that they have the emotional maturity to help. Some may, some may not, but that they all need service hours. And so just wondered if you're reaching out to service hour coordinators at perhaps some of the major high schools in the areas near the centers. And I will go offline.
Thanks, Mary. Katie, I'm going to invite you to talk to this question.
Yeah, happy to. And it's a great question, Mary. And I actually just wanted to give a quick shout out to a couple of our university partners that are here today. Kim Dean Anderson and Heidi Craypool are both with us from University of Richmond and from Virginia Commonwealth University, 2 of our existing university partners who we are deepening our relationships with. in an effort to bring in a stronger pipeline of college student volunteers to help us with the tutoring here in Richmond. So high school students, Mary, you're right. We actually do believe that they're developmentally might not be the best suited to bring in literacy tutoring, but there is always opportunity for folks to contribute to our centers, absolutely. But we are really excited about expanding our partnerships with universities, particularly in terms of course credit or federal work study. And then, like you said, the service requirements for graduation. So we've always had great partners in our universities in all three of our markets, but we definitely are looking for ways to expand those. We've already had some traction in certain areas. So great question. And I'm excited I had an answer for you, ma'am.
And to reiterate, here in DC, we are also working with university partners. And if you have connections to university partners, particularly schools of education, I am ready to receive your email and have a conversation. So we are also targeting local university partnerships.
I'm going to second that request for Baltimore too.
Okay, I'm going to go to Charlene Faison, who has her virtual hand raised, and then I promise I'm going to get to the 1 or 2 questions that I see in the chat. So Charlene, if I'm saying your name correctly, I invite you to come off mute and ask your question, please.
Yes, hi, thank you. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to add to Ms. Janelle's comment or question about the curriculum. I had one mentee, one scholar during the past school year, and she got through the curriculum really quick, the assigned readings that we had each week. So what I would have to do for her is go online and try to find other articles that related to the higher achievement one or other videos. And we kind of made like little games out of it because she just excelled and, went through the lessons really easily and really quickly. And I think it was only because I had one scholar. If you had more scholars in the group to communicate and chat through the assignments, it would last longer. But I did find that it was easy to implement safe additional readings for her that were, on her level of understanding. So there is freedom in the curriculum. I just wanted to say that. So I didn't, stray too far. We did do the lesson, but I had to substitute some of the time to keep her engaged.
Thank you. Ms. Faison, you're getting a lot of love in the chat. So I'm going to call this out. So we see that you're like a triple threat here. You're an alum of higher achievement, parent, and you just shared your experience as a mentor. So thank you. And you joined us for town hall.
Yes, I'm from DC. I'm out of DC area.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to go back. I don't want to miss it. There was a question about enrichment. Are you doing enrichment programs in person or virtual? So for the fall, our goal and our intention, as much as the school systems and the health systems in each of our school systems allow, is to be delivering programming in person as of the start of the new school year. We now, like many in the world, have all sorts of new skills around how to pivot back to virtual if, unfortunately, God forbid, the world demands it, but we are intending to deliver our programming in person. I hope that answers your question.
Hi, thanks. It's Kate McGuire, and I've been a partner with Higher Achievement for, I think, 6 or 7 years, and we run science after-school electives for Higher Achievement, and they've gone to the state tournament 3 or 4 years in a row out of 30-some Baltimore schools. So I know you're kind of phasing in your electives and your other enrichment, but we do a lot of reading. As well as we bring college volunteers, 4 or 5 to every site. So, and they're ready to come back. So that would be great. Excited for you.
So are we. I mean, I think as many of us said, we are really eager to get back in with scholars in schools, seeing parents in person. And again, we're really working with our local school systems to follow the guidelines, but that is absolutely our intention, to get back at it. Maybe I'll invite Lindsay, would you like to address this question in the chat? What, if any, opportunities do you see coming out of the CARES Act to support your efforts beyond the coming year, and beyond?
Sure. Thanks, Talia. So the CARES Act did give schools an unprecedented financial investment to support learning recovery. And it explicitly named a broader set of educators and expanded learning time, including after-school programs. And that is very unusual for our little slice of the world to be named and resourced in that way. That said, schools are still getting their hands around how best to invest these dollars, what schools think they will be best equipped to do on their own, where they should pursue partnerships, and our executive directors, Talia, Katie, and Garima, are in close partnership with district leaders and principals trying to explore opportunities to both financially support the schools where we are, as well as to consider opportunities to expand with school investment. The CARES Act has also supported other opportunities to support the general operating dollars of higher achievement during this time. Raising funds in over these last 15 months has been highly unusual. We've been very adaptive on that front as well, and having extra support from some flexible funds through CARES Act directly to the organization has been helpful.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Mm-hmm.
We might have time for one final question if there's or two. If there's a couple burning questions, if someone would like to come off mute, raise your hand, come off mute, or drop it in the chat. I think we could have time for one more. I'm comfortable with wait time. Okay. Well, we promised to wrap at 12:45, and so we are right on schedule. It has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much to everybody for taking your lunch break to spend some time with us. We appreciate the thoughtful questions. Thank you to all of our speakers, and thank you to all of our staff for joining as well. We are amazed when we have volunteers, mentors, supporters joining us to hear more about the work that we do. We can't do this without all of the kind of family of supporters in the higher achievement universe. So thank you. We will be sharing the recording of the session out by email tomorrow. If you have colleagues or anyone who missed it, or there's something you'd like to go back to, please be on the lookout. And just a reminder, if you are inspired to take action, please join us in starting the new school year strongly. Please consider signing up to volunteer or to mentor or tutor, or to make a contribution to support the important work that we do across all three of our regions in Richmond, Baltimore, and DC Metro. Again, thank you so much for taking some time to join us. It was wonderful to see you. Please take care.